Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of Dice and Fire News, where we'll be giving you updates on anything new that's taken place on the Song of Ice and Fire Miniatures game from Cool Mini or Not. So, jump right in. Today we're going to take a look at the Kickstarter, which I've already reviewed, but at the time it was only 7 days old. I had 2 weeks to go. Now it's complete. It's raised $1.6 million, and if you're still sitting on the fence about it, thought maybe we could walk through it and maybe it'll help you decide. I will admit a little bit of bias. I've already invested in it. I'm very, very excited about the game. That's why I've made this channel, but I will be giving you my honest opinion. So let's just jump right in. So you can make late pledges still. The button's right here. I imagine they allow you to do that up to the point that the pledge manager comes out, and they haven't specifically said when that was, so there might still be a fair amount of time left. The What You Get guide is pretty clear now. So you get the starter set, which is the same starter set you get at retail. Has your terrain, your dice, your range rulers, and of course 103 miniatures. And if we scroll down, we start getting to all the extra goodies you get from the Kickstarter. So there's 30 characters that have been unlocked. So these are 30 additional models, top of everything else. Some of them are alt sculpts. For example, Gregor here and the Great John Umber. They're both alt sculpts, and since they're unique characters, these are basically only of interest to you if you want to paint both different versions. You can't play with both different versions. And then there are other alt sculpts like this Guard Captain and Assault Veteran. They actually are basically bonuses because you could have up to really every unit in the game in your army could have an Assault Veteran if you wanted. So having an extra one is totally helpful for army building. And then all these other characters give you loads of options for customizing your army. And on top of those characters, we also get 4 extra units that you would not get if you just bought this starter set at retail. The Bastard Girls, which are a mercenary ranged unit, a mercenary cavalry unit, a Stark ranged unit, and a Lannister cavalry unit. This gives you pretty balanced forces. Both sides could have access to a cavalry unit, and even a heavy cavalry unit if you want to slap these guys on the Stark side. The Lannisters don't technically have a ranged unit like the Starks do, but you could throw these Bastards Girls into the Lannister side, and you could build. Well, you actually could build all sorts of stuff, but these extra guys will give you a lot of options for building 2 armies right out of the box. And then in addition, you get all these tokens and a mercenary tactics deck, which is essentially allows you to have a third faction right out of the box, although you're not really going to have enough mercenary units to really to play it just out of the box, but it's still exciting because it means we have a third faction coming right at the beginning of launch. And then finally, the Iron Throne itself, this big hunking piece of plastic, which is cool because I've never been a fan of the way it's showed on the show. It's nice to see a more book accurate depiction of it finally. All right, so that's what you get for $150, and this is a good deal. Don't get me wrong, 150 is a lot of money. So if you're sitting on the fence, again, I'm a fanboy. Don't let me pressure you. But again, we're getting 103 in the starter set right here, 103, and then another 30, and then there's 32 figurines in these unit boxes. So that comes to 165 total for 150 bucks. That's basically 90 cents a miniature. And some of these are very large miniatures. They're all very detailed miniatures. And I believe there'll be 83 unique sculpts out of all these too. So, even if you're not interested in the game, in a lot of ways, if you're looking to proxy something else, this is a good 150 for doing that even. But like I said, it's not a small sum of money, but it's actually also kind of an expensive hobby. So as starter sets go, this is probably a pretty impressive deal in my opinion. Let's take a look at these optional buys. I'll tell you what I bought, and I'll put some opinions. But again, I spent too much money on this game, so don't necessarily listen to everything I tell you. So they have 3 neoprene mats. They're 4x4, actually essentially 2x4, but because they're split in half, but you get 2 of them, so they come out to 4x4. And right here you can see that they're 2 pieces. So financially, I think these are a pretty good deal. I'm not a big fan of especially these first 2. They're kind of busy. It's cool that out of locations from the books. Like this is the Assault on King's Landing, Battle of Blackwater Bay, but this field is really busy, and so like the thing about you have to remember in these kind of games is terrain has effects. So you have to decide like, okay, well, is this going to have an effect or is it just a static part of the map? Then you're like, well, it still looks weird to have my guy standing on this overturned boat or whatever if it doesn't have an effect. So I actually am not a big fan of this mat. I'm also not a fan of this one. It's a little bit less crazy, but it has like the water right here. So again, like if I'm facing off on the non-water side and you start over here and you put your guys in the water, it looks a little bit weird. I'm just not a big fan. I think the price on these is both really good, but I don't like them. I do like this third one a little bit better. It's probably the least busy of them. And there's still like this burned building down here, so you have to decide how you're going to treat that. But I bought one of these. I thought it looked pretty darn cool, and I don't really have a field map, so I thought that looked neat. After that, there are these unit boxes. They're selling them for 30. Basically, they come with 12 miniatures and a leader, or if they're a cavalry unit, they come with 4 miniatures. They're not necessarily the most well-priced thing on this Kickstarter. So unless you really want, like a second group of Lannister halberdiers, I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying these, especially considering like once you bought 2 or 3 of them, you've spent $90 for another 150, which again, I know we were talking about more and more money, but for another 150, you can get basically one of everything with another starter set. So, then you'd have 2 Iron Thrones, which that doesn't make any sense. However, there are 3 units that you can only get if you buy a unit box. And that is these Lannister crossbowmen and these Tully Sworn Shields and these Bolton Cutthroats. So, if you're a completionist and you don't want to wait, I could see yourself getting these. I suspect that you'll probably be able to pick these boxes up for a little bit less than 30 once they hit retail. So for those of you sitting on the fence, maybe you don't get these extra guys yet. But again, I said I'd admit to everything that I bought. I got one of each of those. And then next there's a deluxe rulebook. I bet you this will look pretty good. They said there's going to be artwork for all the miniatures that we've seen and some we haven't. So I'm sure this will look really nice on a shelf, but I personally didn't get it. The starter set does come with a paper rulebook, so you're not missing out other than on some probably pretty cool artwork. And then we get to the terrain. So they made a lot of plastic terrain, and they're saying it's only going to be available through the Kickstarter, which is kind of a shame because the stuff looks pretty cool. Got some buildings in a bog, $17. This one's maybe a little questionable, but like these trees and hedges is a pretty good deal for 17, based off what you normally see for plastic terrain. And it's kind of nice that they went ahead and colored brown and green, so it looks. I mean, you would probably want to paint this up, but it looks decent out of the box, which is neat. We've got some palisades and stakes. I really like this weirwood, and these court piles look pretty wicked also. And finally, these plateaus are kind of whatever. They're only $12. What's funny is I was gonna buy everything but these plateaus, and then they came up with a bundle, and basically, if you buy everything, you get $10 off. So it essentially made the plateaus cost $2, and so I was like, oh well, they're just $2. Might as well get them. All right, so everything else is just accessories. Got some Lannister dice and Stark dice and Mercenary faction dice. 10 dice for $10. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but you can get 36 dice for like $6 on Amazon. So, I mean, if you really, really want to start dice, then go for it, man. But that's one thing I was able to resist. Like I said, I'm a pretty big fanboy. These activation tokens are actually pretty cool and pretty well priced. I didn't get them just because it's already so much to paint, but I think they're a pretty good deal, actually. 10 for 7. They're big. They're the same size as the units, so these are definitely a good value-wise. They're good. Here's the Stark ones and the Mercenary faction, and then they have some dice bags with the house words on them. I believe this one says, the Mercenary one says, I sell my sword, I don't give it away. And finally, there's these house-specific range rulers. And that's what's on the Kickstarter. Like I said, the most value you're going to get out of this thing is definitely the base Hand of the King pledge for 150 right here. And then everything else is kind of optional. I would say, especially if you're playing other war games, and for some reason you don't have a bunch of terrain, the terrain bundle is a pretty good deal. And if you don't mind busy play mats, then the play mats are also a pretty decent deal. So that's an overview of the Kickstarter. Hopefully it was helpful to some of you. And thanks a lot for watching.